Hey students, in this video we're going to review how to solve quadratic equations with a factoring method. We are going to use different strategies. We're probably going to review once again how to use the x to help you find the factors that you're going to need. And then we're also going to review how to be doing the grouping strategy. So the first example is going to be a replica of how I explained how to factor in Algebra 1. So first, you're going to look at the trinomial that you have, and your goal is to get this into two binomials that you multiply to get this answer. So one way we showed that is with a box method, area model. And the ax squared is always on this top left corner, so that's where the 4x squared goes. Then you have bx in the middle, and the b is the answer to the combination of these two boxes combined, added. Then the c value is always going to be at the bottom right of the box. Here we're going to ask ourselves, what did we multiply to get these answers that we're going to have on the inside? So first we need to find those two numbers in there. And these two numbers are found through the strategy of writing the x. On the top of the x, we're going to write the answer to multiplying a times c. A times c is 4 times negative 6. That's negative 24. At the bottom, we're going to have b values, so that's negative 5. Excuse me. And then you're going to ask yourself, what are the numbers that should go here? So this is where we ask ourselves the factors of 24. What are the factors of the number that's up here? So 24 could be 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. And as you're creating this list, your goal is to find which combination will give you that negative 5 if you were to add or subtract. So in this case, we have a negative in there for the negative 24. That means one of these has to have a negative to get negative 24 as an answer. So 3 and 8 give you that difference of 5. That means we can use these two as the numbers to put in here. And then in order to get negative 5 as an answer, you will have to have negative on the 8 because 3 minus 8 is negative 5 and 3 times negative 8 is negative 24. So these numbers are the ones that will go in here. We're going to put an x next to them. And it doesn't matter where you put them. I'm just going to put positive 3x, negative 8x. And now we factor, finding the GCF, the greatest common factor, either looking at it downward or across. So looking at it downward, 4x squared and 3x have x in common. I could factor out the x. Sorry about that. And then now, once you have that, we can multiply x times 4x. X times 4x gives you 4x squared. And then now ask yourself, x times what gives me 3x? So that's a positive 3. X times 3 is 3x. At the top right over here, 4x times what gives you negative 8x? So that's negative 2. 4x times negative 2 gives you negative 8x. So in red, I'm representing what the factors are for this example. It's going to be 4x plus 3, which is found right here. And then the other one is x minus 2. So it looked like this was the easiest method compared to other algebraic methods, but we're heading into Unit 6, and Unit 6 is going to need you to do the grouping process. So let's practice that in the next 3 examples. So in the grouping process, we're going to follow first, here in the steps is to check if there's a GCF. Is there a greatest common factor between these 3 numbers, 6, 15, and 9? So they do have 3 as the GCF. They all can be divisible by 3. So we are going to factor out the 3, and then we're going to write down the trinomial that we get after we factor it out. So 3 times 2x squared will give you 6x squared. 3 times negative 5x will give you that negative 15x, and 3 times negative 3 will give you that negative 9. So you can either divide each one of these individually by the GCF, the greatest common factor, or you could write it down and then ask yourself, what do I multiply times that greatest common factor to get these as answers? So this is the trinomial that comes out from factoring the 3 out. Next, we're going to follow the steps right here. So first, we're going to rewrite the expression using the A term first, and then the C term, and then in the middle, we're going to put 2 blanks. And this happens because we're reversing the process of multiplying. We're finding out what are the factors. So instead of multiplying and then combining like terms and getting a B value, we're replacing the V value with 2 numbers that were combined to get that negative 5. So we're going to put that 2x squared in the front and this negative 3 at the end. And now ask ourselves what could go in there. So there's a lot of ways we can just do this. We can either draw an X, create a table, a product sum table, we can draw columns. So an example will be the X again. You will multiply A times C to fill in the top part, and then B goes at the bottom. A times C is 2 times negative 3, which is negative 6. And then negative 5 goes in the bottom. The other method will be to draw a little table that has the A times C on one side and then the B value here. A times C we said was negative 6. B value is negative 5. And then you can write your factors here. What are the factors of negative 6? We have negative 1 times 6. We have 1 times negative 6. We have negative 2 times 3. And we also have 2 times negative 3. So these are pretty much a chart that you want to create and see which one of these will give you that negative 5 that you want if you were to combine them. Negative 1 plus 6 is positive 5. Excuse me. 1 minus 6 is negative 5. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1. And 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So the one that gives you that negative 5 is this one right here, this combination. And that's the combination that you're going to use to put in these spaces. You could have also gotten this answer by asking yourself, what are the factors of 6? So 1 times 6, 1 and 6, or 2 times 3, and then which ones add up to negative 5. So some students had said 2 and 3 add to 5, but in order to get negative 5, you had to have negative and negative, but negative times negative is positive, so that wouldn't have worked. So we had to use 1x and 6x, and then the 6 has to be negative in order to end up with negative 5. So we're going to use these numbers right here, 1x, positive 1x, and negative 6x. And that's already step 3, which is placing those numbers on the spaces. The step 4 is to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms, and then you're going to find the GCF for the factors of the first part. So like you're going to draw parentheses around these first 2 and then the last 2. Ask yourself for the GCF on these 2. So what they both have in common is an x. And then if you notice, if we take out the x, if we divide these by x, or we think of x times what gives us this, is x times 2x to get 2x squared, and x times 1 to get 1x. So this binomial that we created, we're going to write it again. And then this space in the middle, or in between them, we're going to put a number that we multiply this factor with to get this as an answer. Or you can ask yourself, what do these 2 have in common that you could also factor out? But this helps if you can just look at it as what times 2 gives you negative 6. The answer will be negative 3. And then you check if negative 3 times positive 1 gives you that answer, and it does. So these 2 that I have in red right here, those are actually a factor already. And then the one that repeats, that's the other factor. So that is how you find the factors using the grouping method. Now we're going to use this strategy of the grouping method to solve, but I'll make that in a separate video. That way this video is not too long. So watch the next part.